always been, I mean, we're playing to develop, but ultimately, like, when we're in a game, we're playing to win, right? Practice is when we develop, and then the game showcase what we've learned. So if you're not getting minutes, you're still going to develop under me, because our practices are going to be game-like, and they're going to be intentional, and they're going to build, and you're going to develop. But, you know, playing time obviously isn't, it's not like it's not going to help you develop, right? So I can't say it doesn't matter at all. And this is the point where with parents, I've kind of had that like internal struggle of like, well, they are developing, but let's be real. I mean, losing playing time, you're losing development, right? So how do you navigate through that? And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I just don't know, I guess, in reflection, like, have I been doing that right?
Let me throw
Go
in.
ahead, Kai. Go ahead, Kai.
So number one, if you haven't learned yet, you'll learn very soon. We try to make everyone happy. It's just not possible, right? So there's step one. Like, it's our ultimate goal is to try, but there's also a threshold that is just not going to happen because they signed up for competitive numbers. So at some point, their kid didn't get into Stanford or Yale, right? Like, at some point when you enter competitive realms, there's going to be winning and losing. You just hope when you enter competitive that you're always on the winning side. The other thing I'd add, because I coached in one or two smaller clubs in the Bay Area in a naturally competitive environment, and I had a 0304s. I think they were like a sophomore team and a junior team, basically. And part of it, and at that club, I had a little bit more do what you want to do. I read what they wanted. So, like, my 04s, all they wanted to do is win. They weren't good enough, but all they wanted to do is win everything. And I said, all right, then this is the standard I am going to hold this team to with the players and the parents, because you asked for my advice. This is what I think it takes to do well in MPL at sophomore age. And the 03s were the complete opposite. They're U17s. They're like, we just want to enjoy, have fun. We have enough talent. We'll win some games. We're going to frustrate you because we're going to lose games we shouldn't. But in the end, we just want to hang out, be friends, and can you teach us some things? And I was like, okay, like, I'm, and one of those kids start for me at Southern Utah. So, but 10 of them went to college and never even wrote a college coach. But that's what that team wanted. And the parents loved me because I delivered on what they wanted. The 04s didn't like me as much because all they wanted were championships, and they weren't good enough for it. And I tried to push them to the level of what it took, and they didn't want to do everything. So I think part of it is, can you read what the environment you're either coming into or what you want, and then be almost inclusive at the older ages, right? Like, same thing. I used to coach high school. Okay, you guys want to win a championship? Okay, well, some of you might miss out on playing time. Some of you, what are you that get playing time going to do for the kids you don't when it becomes an issue? Right. So I think you can almost have that collaborative conversation once every 6 to 8 weeks with players and parents, right? Like anything, you bring them in on it. Now they have ownership, right? Bring them in on it and be like, okay, well, then I think it needs to look like this, right? And now, and knowing that, 10 aren't going to be happy anyway.
Yeah, agreed. I think transparency changes so much for everybody, no matter what your coaching philosophy is. Something that my instructor said in my C license just a couple weeks ago was, it takes some cojones to do what you want to do. And so if you and your team are on the same page of what your development looks like, then you convey that to the parents, and you convey that this is what we're doing and this is what our team is going to be held to a standard to. Then again, transparency changes everything. And you do got to take a little guts to, because one thing I've learned, especially over the last 2 years specifically, is you need thick skin in this game. You cannot be a thin skin coach out here, because everybody's going to have an opinion of what you're saying, what you're doing, how you're doing it. Everyone's a sideline coach and thinks that they're better than you. And so there's such a subjectivity to coaching soccer that you have to just take ownership over it and really just like, no, this is what I want. These are my core values, and this is what I'm going to stick to.
Mike, you want to add anything to this chat?
Yeah, at the younger kids, like I said, I'm actually trying to figure out the breaking point. I'm trying to figure out the lose point for the players, right? I'm trying to figure out. I use the games not as a development tool, really. I use the games as the test to see if what we're doing in practice is being absorbed, right? So I couldn't care less if we win these games, lose games, or any of those other things. The winning and losing at U11, U10, U9, U8 is irrelevant. Nobody's going to win. Nobody's going to care about those. So those are like my tests to see if I'm doing a good job in training. If they're attempting to execute, whether they pull the execution off or not is almost irrelevant too. If they're attempting to execute the stuff that we trained on, then I'm doing a good job of getting it through to them. They'll get better at the execution the more they do it, right? But what I ask players to do is actually really hard. It goes against all of the little kids' natural instincts, right? Keeping possession, making good decisions, knowing when to dribble versus when to pass, when to pull the ball back, all of those things, you know, playing with your head up. Playing with your head up is the opposite of what they want to do. They want to look at their feet and they want to look at the ball when they're 8 years old, right? And so it's more of the test. The games for me are more of a test to see if what I'm getting through. And we're gonna lose games because we turn the ball over trying to play out of the back instead of playing over the top, right? There's gonna be, and you can't get frustrated and upset. And when I hear parents go, "Oh, come on, what are you doing?" You go, "No. They tried to do the right thing. Trust me, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, when they're pulling that off, it's going to be great. Just relax." Okay. We want them trying it. And if we yell at them now, they won't try it in the future because they'll look at all this yelling as punishment. Or if they get in the car and and all they hear from you is, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that?" Right? Then they're going to be scared to try it in the future. I don't want them scared to try it. I want them to keep trying. I want them to keep doing because they're going to get good at it and they're going to start reading the situation better. So I honestly don't care if we win or lose. And like I said, I'm not using the game themselves as a development tool. I'm using them as a test to see if I'm doing a good job with them. That's what games are for me.
Let me throw in one more thing before you move on to the next question. I want to echo one of the things Mike said. He said a bunch of brilliant things, but I want to echo one of them, which I think is the key to the development winning battle. And you know me, I'm a straight shooter. If you are halfway decent of a coach, minus playing up a year or two, like you said, in 6 to 9 months, you will find a way to beat teams because there's not that many great coaches in the country. So, like, I know we're not supposed to say that, but unless you're over challenging yourself or your 10s playing up to 12s where there's just going to be a battle, if 10s play 10s and you are a pretty good coach, and you are using the game as your litmus test to, is your training coming out in the game? And then you are reevaluating what you do and reassessing and redoing in training, 6 to 9 months, you can make a 5-0 game be 1-5 the other way. Because there's not that many. We weren't supposed to say it, but we said it.
I can't agree with you more. And it's interesting because I've talked a lot, especially on Twitter, about imposter syndrome and how I feel being a Latina female coach. And the more spaces I put myself into, the more I'm like, I do know exactly what I'm talking about. And I probably know a little bit more than some of these people I've been intimidated by. And so, yeah, I completely agree. There's not that many good coaches out there.
I think one of the things I hear, and hopefully we'll get Katie back in the mix, is patience. Like, you're not going to become the greatest soccer player in like the flip of a switch. And especially at U7 and U8, it's too hard to tell who's going to stay after it and continue to develop.